Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good to have you here. Well, everybody here is here voluntarily, isn't it? You could choose from many things, and you chose this one, so that's cool. Thank you so much already. I think we live in very exciting times, and I'm a stand-up philosopher. I'm an entrepreneur for the last 30 years, while I'm only 45 years old, which is rather funny. So I'm celebrating this year my 30th anniversary as an entrepreneur. I never had a job in my entire life, and I grew up with technology without being able to really understand it. So I use technology, but I don't understand it. But what I do know is what the impact is of the amplification effects of technology. So I'm an explorer of the network and information age. And I really believe that now we live in a new renaissance. And in the last renaissance, the Netherlands, the Dutch, where I come from, had their golden age. So this was the first and the last time that the Dutch were in charge in the world. I think now we live in a new renaissance, but now not only the Dutch will benefit from that, but the entire world. And I think that's a good news, because now we live in a global world. Technology is doing something that a lot of people don't somehow grasp, because I think what's happening right now is the end of the economy. The system the fundament that we build our society on is based on scarcity, and we are rapidly evolving into a world of, on the one hand, decentralized altruism, on the other hand, abundance, which is the opposite of scarcity. I will clarify that. If you go back to New York in 1900 and you look at street images, they had a very big problem in 1900 in the streets of New York. It was full of horse shit. So there were a lot of horses there, only one electrical car because the combustion engine wasn't developed that far. And everybody was really having problems with all the horse shit. So dirty shoes, great times for the shoe cleaners, but everybody was trying to figure out what are we going to do with those stockpiles of horse shit. If you would go to the people from the city at that time and you would say to them, well, don't worry, this is over in only 10, 20 years, everybody would look at you and say, yeah, right. But in 1913, you can look it up in the images on Google, in only 13 years' time, the horses were gone. So the transition to a horse-based city, to a car-based city, was only 13 years, more than 100 years ago. This already happened once. But now, we have a new force that most of the people working in IT somehow don't recognize. We have a tremendous force in our hands at the moment on a mankind level, and that didn't exist 100 years ago. It's called network effects. There is an increase in the increase of speed of development. Who of you thinks that technology goes faster than you can deal with actually? That's perfectly normal. Because the new normal is that speed is going up and up and up again. That's fine. Who of you arrived here by car? Who of those people actually understand what's happening within the car from a technology perspective? So we don't actually know how the car really works, but we drive in it and it works, so that's good news. Most of the people that I speak to across the world understand how important networking is. You're here partly because of the network. And most of you are on LinkedIn. But network effects are rarely being studied. And I think network effects are the single biggest cause of the increase of speed of change. So if you want to extrapolate what's happening, you have to understand network effects. And they're actually pretty simple. The first guy who ever bought a fax machine couldn't do anything with it. It always takes a little bit of time. Yeah, so if there's only one guy with a fax machine, you couldn't do anything with it. But the second guy who bought a fax machine added value to the first fax machine. That's funny. You buy something, but you have to wait for another guy to buy something, and then your value increases. But the third guy who ever bought a fax machine added value to the first two fax machines. And the 1,000th guy who bought a fax machine added value to all of the 999 fax machines. This is called the network effect. Every node that you connect to a network increases the amount of connectivity power dramatically. And it's the architecture of the web. This also counts for cell phones. Recently, I discovered something funny when it comes to network effects. There seems to be a cumulative effect in those network effects, and this is causing this increase in speed. Let's get back to the 50s and 60s when we started to adopt black and white TV. It took like this long to adapt to black and white TV. And not everybody had one, so you had to go to the neighbors who had the first television. It took like this long. But the speed in which we could use to color TV was much faster. And then suddenly we abandoned the old-fashioned TVs and then we started to deal with the flat screens. That went much faster. So in the next 2 years we will step over to OLED screens, and the next step will go much faster because then we get rid of the screens and do stuff with projections or brains, I don't know. This also is true for mobile phones. So is there anyone here in the room who ever owned and used the predecessor of GSM? Long ago. They said it was mobile, but it was like a field radio from the Vietnam War with a big AccuPack. So it wasn't really mobile, but you could take it with you, unlike a telephone cell. It took like this long until everybody had a cell phone. But smartphones were much faster. I was there in 2007 when Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone. We see what happened. Who of you is using WhatsApp? Most of the people do because it's free and fast and better than text. So text messages took like this long and WhatsApp much faster. But there it comes. On the first day that Facebook announced the takeover of WhatsApp, 50 million people on the planet stepped over to another app, Telegram. A few went back, but that's another discussion. 50 million people not loyal to the old platform, changing from the one platform to the next. So there's a huge increase in that. And the big moment was last summer, not this summer, but a year ago. Suddenly, 750 million people on this planet start to adapt to something new in the field of technology in only 3 months' time. Anyone? What was new a year ago in the field of technology when 750 million people start using it suddenly?
Dislike button.
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go.
Who's still playing it? Which level? Which team? Yellow. Okay, I'm blue. I'm level 35. Oh. 37. Wow. You took a lot of effort. So 750 million people on the planet start using something new in only 3 months' time. This is a signal for something that 1 billion people will start to do in only 1 week. 2 billion people start to do in a day. And 4 billion people start to do in only 1 hour. This is the cumulative effect of those network effects. This story from the 60s, this universal brain, this universal mind, the age of Aquarius, is actually happening right now. 2 billion people daily online in social networks. 3 or 4 billion people, I lost count actually, are online. And in the upcoming 5 years, there will be 6 billion people on this planet online. The few billion that will start to join the web are new. They're clueless. So they just start to play with it and deal with it, coming up with ideas that we can't even imagine. I don't know how it is here in Romania, but in the Netherlands, obesitas is a very big problem amongst youngsters. It doesn't matter how much $1 billion the United Nations or the European Union or your Ministry of Health wanted to spend on obesitas, but an average Pokemon Go player takes 2 to 8,000 extra steps a day. It's the most successful anti-obesitas program on Earth as a by-effect of this game. But the real message is in something different. The experts that I spoke to, that I take seriously, say that augmented reality will be a bigger revolution than the smartphone revolution. We all saw what happened after we got smartphones. But they expect that AR will be much bigger and better than the smartphone revolution. So somehow 750 million people on this planet, most of them youngsters, got used to a new technology that a lot of people are not even aware of. I addressed a speech to the people of Booking.com in Copenhagen a few weeks ago. They had no idea that Apple, with 1 billion customers, were launching the biggest AR platform on earth ever 2 weeks ago. They had no idea how they could benefit from AR. But actually Booking.com is benefiting from supply-demand friction in the hotel business with two key aspects: convenience on the one hand and reputation algorithms on the other hand. And if you don't know what AR is doing, you will soon be out of business when you're Booking.com. Is there anybody here decorating his house in the upcoming month? Yeah? A few, okay. And who of those people has back problems with your back? It's a bad combination. So something interesting is happening. So Pokemon Go is not relevant. Look, AR, I look at my camera, I see you, nothing's wrong. I look at my camera, suddenly there's a Pokemon on your lap and I'm going to catch it and then get some extra points. This is not relevant, but it's interesting because it's so convincing. Those Pokemons literally look real. But back to your redecorating of your house. Let's say you want to redecorate your house. You can start to move the furniture around, but with the new app that Apple launched together with IKEA, you can do the following thing. You just look at your room and you think, I don't like that table. You don't move it, you just take your finger and pff, it's gone. That's still there, but it's gone on your screen. Then you say, hey Siri, and then you go to the IKEA app and then it will place a new table that actually fits in the same space as the last table because it can computize that because of all the technology in here. And you say, okay, I really like that. And then you just push the button and then you pay it. And you think, okay, then I also need a new couch. Boom, the couch is gone, you order a new couch. This is relevant. This is already here since 2 weeks, since the release of iOS 11, iPhone 8. But the real story, no, I'll get back to you later on, sorry. I know what's next, so there's a kind of advantage. It's not the AR story I want to tell you. There's something bigger if you zoom out. Right now, there are about 30 technologies happening at the same time, developing exponentially. And there's a huge convergence between those technologies. It's biotechnology, neurotechnology, nanotechnology, sensor technology, robotics, photonics, 3D printing, 4D printing, DNA sequencing, AR, VR, mixed reality, cryptocurrencies, the Bitcoin. We have artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, predictive intelligence, open source, open data, big data, open hardware, the maker movement, the do-it-yourself movement, and social swarms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and Instagram, and a bit more. So why am I mentioning them all? Because a lot of companies and boards that I advise to say we already do big data or we're already doing machine learning. I think that's not relevant anymore. The thing that I want to state here is that within 5 years, 6 billion people on this planet will have access to all those technologies. People with budgets, but also without budgets. Entrepreneurs, but also funtrepreneurs who are developing stuff without a business model because there are no extra costs to play with those technologies. And when you look at this carefully, what if every problem on this planet was actually just a puzzle? How do you solve a puzzle? You make it visible. We use the web for that. And suddenly other puzzlers can discover that other people were working on the same puzzle as they did. Experts and amateurs, scientists, amateurs, people with budget, without budget. Never ever before there were so many puzzles visible for so many puzzlers, and never ever before there were so many pieces of puzzles together for so many puzzlers. So if you look at this, we will see an increase by billions compared with the last 100 years in the upcoming 10 years. A lot of organizations exist because there is somehow supply-demand friction when it comes to solving puzzles. But if the puzzle is solved, there's no business there anymore. And I think that's good news on the mankind level. It's the end of the economy as we know it. So there's a lot of funny stuff happening. Stuff that was yesterday unsolvable suddenly is free for a lot of people. If you look at the consequences of this, you see that the price of solar power panels is going down rapidly, faster than ever. The efficiency is going up of solar panels. So by 2035, electricity will be free because it's so cheap to create solar cells then, and the efficiency is so high that effectively electricity will be free about 2035. I expect sooner. That's not the solution of the energy crisis because 4/5 of energy is warmth, cooling, and the leaking of power. But if you tackle electricity, you tackle a big one. It's decentralized, open source. You cannot kill that when you're Dutch Shell or another big oil company. And if you solve this puzzle, you can solve the next one. Because this solved puzzle is a piece of the next puzzle. It's fresh water. Suddenly you can power the machines to turn brackish and saltish water into fresh water for free. And if you solve that, you solve the drinking water problem. But you then also solve the hygiene problem for the poorest 1 billion people on the planet. And with that comes the health problem for those people. Then you can start to eradicate the desert because you throw water on the desert and it will grow plants. And then you can harvest food and you solve the nutrition problem. This stuff is happening right under your nose in the upcoming 30, 40 years. A few more examples to make my statements and then we can discuss it. There was this guy, Jack Andraka. I've met him 2 times. Jack was 13 years old. And in his family, somebody died of pancreatic cancer. If you get pancreatic cancer, you're in trouble, you're gonna die. Steve Jobs from Apple died of pancreatic cancer. Why is that? The pancreas is deep in your body, so diagnosis is difficult and most of the time you're too late. To diagnose pancreatic cancer is complex and expensive. But this 13-year-old guy, Jack Andraka, was not only 13 years, he was gay. He was nerd or geek. He was not out of the closet in the wrong state of the United States. He was not well connected, experienced, rich. And he took his laptop. And he was angry. And he went back into his room. And then he started to use 2 tools, Google and Wikipedia, that will be in the hands of 5 billion people on the planet with only 5 years' time. And he started to puzzle with that. And within 2 years, he discovered the existence of biomarkers and how to apply it. And he discovered what nanotubes were and how to apply it. And then he discovered a method that was 196 times faster, 400 times more accurate, but here it comes, 26,000 times cheaper than all the existing methods. So a 15-year-old guy with no experience at all tackled the pancreatic cancer problem. Because after his tool is on the market, your survival rate won't be just 2%, but 98%. Nobel Prize he will win, don't worry. This is not a lone wolf with a weapon of mass destruction. This is an interconnected teen wolf with a weapon of mass disruption. And he's not on his own. There are thousands of guys like this. You can meet them on TED.com, on Meetup.com, at conferences like this. They're not in it for the money. They want to do awesome shit. And they don't need big buildings, personnel, big bank accounts to make a difference. And my bet is that the upcoming 2 billion people that will join us on the web don't care either. They don't care about houses and cars anymore. They care about doing awesome shit. And they have the power to do that. Now there's something funny happening. Who's using Wikipedia every now and then? Yeah, so Wikipedia is decentralized altruism enabled by technology. A few 100,000 people who for other reasons than personal finance gain are contributing to something that is in the hands of 5-6 billion people in the upcoming years. If you would own an Encyclopedia Britannica back in the days, most of the times you wanted to look something up, you couldn't, because you weren't on the same place at where the books were. And now suddenly this is in the hands of everybody. From an economic perspective, this is bad news. All the numbers are going down. No paper, no wood cuts, no transport, no printer, no editor, all the numbers are going down. But somehow, on a mankind level, we're going up. So there's decentralized, technology-enabled altruism, but there's something else happening. And that's that we now rapidly are entering a world of abundance. So most of the economists that I speak to, even from the government, get confused when I explain it to them. Their system is based on scarcity. But the thing is, maybe you're a billionaire, But you cannot listen to more songs on Spotify as a billionaire than I can, being one of the poorest people on the planet. Because having access to everything is having access to everything. So somehow people forget that digitization means also dematerialization. Everything that can become digital will become digital. That's the pattern. Once it's digital, you can copy it without extra cost. But everything that stays material will be cheaper, faster, better, more accurate, more beautiful, towards zero. This is the underlying pattern, because we are solving stuff in an unprecedented level that we cannot even imagine. Is there anybody here worried about climate change at all? That might be a very wise idea, because there is something going on with climate change. On the one hand, I think, hey, we're mankind. What we've been doing for the last 100,000 years is dealing with shit. So if there comes shit, we will deal with it. This is what the pattern is. But maybe it's a good idea to rethink climate change and to do something about it. And a very large part of climate change is being caused by dairy, like milk and stuff like that, and the consumption of meat. Are there any vegetarians here in the room? Thank you on behalf of the animals. I'm not that far yet, but I'm starting to think about, maybe it's not a good idea to eat meat, but I love it. But the problem is not that we eat meat. The real problem is that the Chinese are excellent copiers, so they copy everything, but now they started to copy our behavior. And suddenly they want to also eat meat, and there are too many Chinese, so we cannot have that. And then you go to Einstein, who once famously said, you cannot solve a problem with the same way of thinking that created the problem. So then you have to look through the lens of technology to solve the societal, social, environmental, economic problem. And then you end up in the beautiful city of Maastricht in the Netherlands, where scientist Mark Post isolated stem cells from a sedated cow, so no harm was being done. And fortunately, for a stem cell, it doesn't really matter if it will grow inside a cow or outside a cow in ideal environment. Mark took 3 months, and then he had enough cells to create a hamburger out of it. So he phoned the best chef cooks on the earth and said, can you make a hamburger out of this? It was a pretty expensive hamburger 3 years ago. It was $300,000. So you have to be a Russian oligarch, I think, to be able to pay for that. But what's interesting is, this is not Frankenstein food. This is not genetically engineered food. This is like biological food. But the taste was almost similar to normal meat. He also had to figure out how to put more fat in it to make it more greasy. From a nutrient perspective, it was identical to meat from a finely killed cow. And the feel in your mouth, which is important with meat, was also identical. So it doesn't really matter if it will take 3 years ago it was 300,000 euros or dollars, something like that. But at the moment it's only $20. Because the pattern is that everything that's expensive will be faster, better, cheaper, more accurate. So now, 3 years later, these hamburgers are $20. And it doesn't really matter if it will take 8 years or 14 years, but this will be 10 cents per burger. This is how you solve problems on a mankind level and how you use technology to do awesome shit. So the next thing is the thing that I'm most excited about. And I still have a few minutes, I guess?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I have a few minutes. Okay, I guess you all heard about DNA, right? So in 51, Francis Crick and James Watson discovered the double helix that creates DNA. As far as we know, DNA is the best solution from God or nature, you can choose, for storing information. It's the best hard drive on the planet. It can deal with great heat. It can deal with great cold, unlike the USB drives. And it will last for a few thousand years. You all seen Jurassic Park. But the capacity of 1 gram of DNA is insane. 1 gram of DNA can contain 162 petabytes of data. That's the equivalent of 8 cubical meters of DVDs without the box. Chunk full with unique data. This is all the books on the planet in every language, including the comic books, the cookbooks and all the manuals. All the music on Earth, all the moving images you ever saw, including Sesame Street, all the pictures you ever took, and all the the drawings of all the 3D objects on the planet, and a bit more. But here it comes. You can make millions of copies of this via a biological process in a little Petri scale, which you might know from Breaking Bad. So, right now there are experts and amateurs with large budgets, but also without budget, figuring out how to store Breaking Bad and House of Cards in DNA. They already succeeded in doing this. So it doesn't really matter if this is in the hands of everybody within 8 years or in 15 years, but this will mean the end of privacy, data security, information security, and yeah, copyright. I have no idea how you want to enforce or protect the copying of information via a biological process. You cannot do anything without on that. And frankly, if we're all in the same problem, then it is not a problem, because, but this will be here within, I think, 12 years. You can look that up. So this is the stuff that I'm really excited about. But the total dynamics of the world we live in are changing. There's a very famous book called The End of Power by Moses Naim. Why being in charge isn't what it used to be. There are 3 forms of power that are eradicated because of everything I just mentioned. It's expert power. I'm the expert, you're the amateur, so shut up. You could do that 30 years ago, you cannot do that anymore. I'm the boss, so you do what I say. Position power. Well, try that with millennials. They run away and then you have to do everything yourself. And power by example. Well, we also saw what happened with Bill Cosby and Michael Jackson. Also not a good idea. So I think we get this new fluid dynamic network power that you cannot abuse, because as soon as you abuse your power base will be gone because of radical transparency. I'm not trying to convince you, but I think I do have 1 or more points, so take that with you in your endeavors to make this a better place. I can talk for 6 hours without anybody here falling asleep, but unfortunately I don't have 6 hours. So maybe we can do some Q&A to create at least the illusion of interaction. And I saw 2 people here raising their hands, and I think you were first. Hi. So can you help? Oh, there's the microphone.
I don't know, maybe it's just like a theme for you to think, but I have someone that is working on a cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
based on DNA.
Yeah.
I cannot explain all the business model behind this, but he explained this to someone, and the guy asked him, but why this will have success? Because the planet only supports 10 billion people, and the cryptocurrency has behind some researchers that they want to gather data from all the DNAs that are inside this cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
to solve medical health problems.
Yeah.
Say, okay, I don't think you will have success because there is no interest to solve this problem. So maybe it's a theme of thinking.
Okay, so there's another question. It's something that you want to put in my brain. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay, another question there.
All you've told us sounds very bright and shiny, like we're heading for a Star Trek-like future, but I think it's ignoring 2 stuff. So far, what humanity has done was move fast and ignore the consequences. That's what the entire petrol industry has done so far. They seeked profits and ignored the negative externalities. This is one of the things I would like to mention, and the other thing is all of this you mentioned, all the network effects are going to face the goals of the system, the paradigms of the system which will probably be roadblocks that will have to be overcome.
Yeah,
Because,
but eventually then you're talking about power mechanisms.
Not really, not really. I mean, yes, of course, power mechanism, because so far patents and copyright is a roadblock to progress.
Yeah, but they're easy to bypass. But if you want to abuse it economically, you get in trouble. But if you just use it, well, it becomes more difficult. And there's one thing: there are more mice than cats, and the mice start to work together. So if the cat doesn't behave very well, he's in trouble because he will be outnumbered.
And the third thing I would like to mention is that also humanity has a tendency to stagnate for long periods of time, like the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And in the case of a new world war, we could face a long period of stagnation, regardless of the progress we are making.
I can't fantasize about that because my brain doesn't work that way. So I cannot see how we can stagnate if we can solve so many stuff as we're solving right now. Okay, we're going to do some more. Otherwise, it will be just a dialogue, and we're with more people here. So thank you for your comments and raising hands. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ciprian. I have a question about technology and politics. And I think they are in conflict more and more.
Yeah.
Because we see many countries trying to regulate the internet because it's without borders and politicians see that as a threat.
Yeah. Okay, there's a famous
AI, it's another problem. For example, we've seen earlier this morning a presentation where someone was telling us and proving that AI is better than
I was there.
So
I was there. So what's happening? There's this funny. There's an interesting book called "The Starfish and the Spider." It's about the unstoppable power of leaderless organizations. So politicians think they are in power, but they only are in charge of four things: legislation and new law, policy, and money. So let's dive into that. Regulations, always too late. Laws, always too late, and you cannot apply them. Money, so much hassle, we try to figure how to do it without the money. So we don't need them for the money because we organize it ourselves. We can do stuff for free and they need a lot of money for it. So let's do it free altogether. And policy. Well, long term nowadays is 3 months. Short term is now. So those models don't interact with the old-fashioned power mechanisms. So the only place that I don't visit are politicians. A few friends of mine are politicians. I love them. They're really hard-working people. But put two of them together, you cannot do anything anymore. So politics is not the solution for a mankind problem. I think it's on.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Name is Vlad. Sorry, just one quick question. Do you think there are any kinds of puzzles that cannot be fixed through the network effects?
No, I'm starting to believe that even gravity might just be a problem, a puzzle.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a disclaimer for the people who start to feel uncomfortable. I realize this is a positive story of hope. I do that on purpose. Hail to the pessimists. I love you, because pessimists are very skilled in trying to prevent problems. That's always a good idea. But there's one thing that a pessimist can't do, and it's actually solve a problem, because you need an optimist for that. And we need optimists more than pessimists right now. I'm very well capable of addressing a very sad, negative speech. The problem with that as a speaker is in 5 minutes you become upset, in 10 minutes you become angry, and then you leave the room, which is a bad idea if you try to talk to people. So I did it on purpose. Okay, I think we have one or two more questions. Maybe you have questions.
I do have, actually.
You had fun, by the way? Yeah? Okay, good.
Actually, as I'm looking at the changes that happened, the changes that happened before, like the book. I don't know how many of us know that Martin Luther was the biggest blogger of all times at the time.
Yeah.
He actually managed to print and to get noted and to have posts, regular posts like today's, but on paper, that actually revolutionized the church. So, and when the book appeared, it was a threat to the people who were in the know, to educators. So they're thinking, oh God, somebody who has 10 books may know more than I know in my subject field. So now I'm doomed. The education is finished.
No, you're not doomed,
So
you're
actually,
empowered.
we have been through this kind of massive, major changes, and actually we cope with, we reinvent ourselves. We reinvent where the job
It's
is.
the pattern, yeah.
We reinvent what the economy is. We reinvent what working is. We reinvent where power is. We reinvent everything. So I'm on the positive side here.
Cool, thank you for that. Good. Okay, so I wish you all a lot of fun at the rest of the conference. A lot of stuff for me is to find online, so I post some stuff online as well. I think the talk will be online.
How do we get to you in contact? We go to
It's
your
there, MARTIJN
Okay,
ASLANDER
excellent.
International, easy to find. Thank you so much and enjoy your day.
Thank you.